Years ago, I was living in Columbia, Missouri with a roommate in an apartment, and I was getting far behind on rent. So let's talk about that inside this video. Hi, I'm Zach. I'm a 31-year-old vegan singer-songwriter here in Missouri, and in this video, I'm gonna talk about the time whenever I got really behind on rent and started to owe my roommate money, which I still owe him money to this day, but I am going to pay him back, him and my landlord. So, years ago, before I lived at my parents' house, before I moved back in, after I became homeless again, and I was living in a hotel, and then my parents offered me to move back in, which I'm very grateful for. And I've come a long way since then. But back then, I was working. Well, I was going in and out of working for Papa John's. Actually, I don't want to say in and out of working because I was working the entire time. It's just some of the time I was working for myself and I was doing music and I wasn't making money. I was working, but I wasn't making as much money because I would street perform and I would make money, but it just was not enough money. And that was a huge point of the problem, was whenever I was being so stubborn and trying to be successful in my own business and in music, that I was allowing it to affect my financial life and the people around me. And so I was delusional. I was a delusional artist who kept thinking, if I just keep playing music, if I just keep posting, or at the very least writing music and then getting out there and playing, then eventually I will blow up, or eventually I'll find a break and I'll be able to pay off all my debt. And that was the complete wrong way to go about it. Obviously, I never blew up, even though I was consistent, and I am happy that I chose to be consistent in music even whenever I was going through hard times. But still, that was the complete wrong way to go about it. And on top of all that, I did develop a bad drinking problem, and I was smoking weed and vaping nicotine the entire time. So I was blowing all this money on those things because I was addicted to them. And I was getting behind on all my other bills with the delusional thought process that, as long as I stay consistent in music, and then eventually I'll write a song that's just good enough that it will blow up, and then that itself will help me start getting gigs, and then I'll start getting ad revenue, and then I'll get patrons, and then I'll be able to pay off all this debt, and it'll all be good. And so this was horrible. It was horrible of me to do this, and then because of all of that, I was getting behind on rent. I was getting behind on child support even. I was getting behind on car payments. And everything. I was just not able to pay anything consistently. I was trying to pay it. I would put money towards rent, towards child support, and towards car payments, but it was like I was skipping a lot of them, or for long periods of time, because also, minimum wage jobs, even being a manager, even whenever I was working full time, it still wasn't enough money for all of those things. On top of the fact that I was buying alcohol, I was buying weed, and I was buying vapes and nicotine. But even if I wasn't buying those things, which is another way that I would justify it at the time, this is how I justified it in my mind, doing the math. I was like, even if I'm not buying all this alcohol, which I wasn't buying a lot. It was just enough. I wasn't over consuming, buying a whole bunch, having parties. But still, even one drink a night is too much. I mean, but what I'm saying is, I would justify it back then, saying even if I wasn't buying those things, I would still get behind financially. The only way I would have been able to get ahead is working 2 jobs, which I've done before. I've worked 3, and I've done this. I've gotten a little bit ahead and burnt myself out, and I've done it while being sober. But the only way to actually get ahead, just saying, like, it's just how it is, not complaining. But I was complaining back then, though, at times. Although I tried not to complain, even back then, I still tried to keep a healthy, responsible state of mind, and I knew what I was doing. And I felt bad about it. But the only way to get ahead was to work 2 jobs, to get all my food from the food bank so I have less expenses for food, and to not buy anything else. And do that for years and years, and then get a savings, and then you'll be a little bit ahead. But that's not what I did. And instead, I was slowly getting further and further behind. I was buying alcohol and weed and nicotine, and I was spending all my spare time on music, hoping. And at times, I even went through times where I quit my job completely, or I reduced my hours at my job so I could street perform full time, or street perform more on the side, and just play more music. And it wasn't even like I wasn't even uploading videos consistently at this point in my life, which is another problem. If I was doing that, then I would have had another excuse to keep doing what I'm doing, but I would have had a better chance of actually blowing up and the delusion in my mind coming true if I would have actually been uploading videos consistently. I wasn't. All I was doing was street performing and just playing at the practice space, just playing and performing, and every now and then I would play a show or host an event, and I think sometimes I would upload a video. But at this point in my life, I was in a band, and I was betting on the band. I was thinking more what I could do to get the band ahead. So I did some work, and I got some shows and gigs, but for the most part, I was just coasting and just playing music and writing new songs every now and then. But even then, it was like I was more coasting and just playing music as much as I could as an escape, but not even as a way to get better at it or to make good content. But in my mind, I was justifying it by saying, I'm still here playing music. As long as I'm here playing music every single day, eventually I'll blow up, and then I'll get out of this debt. But it wasn't even like I am today, where I'm like actually putting the music online and on Spotify and actually recording it and actually trying to write better music, or music that reaches people more, and I'm actually uploading consistently. And also today I'm completely sober, and I walked away from all those things, and now I'm actually saving money, and thankfully I'm also living with my parents, so I have far less expenses, and I'm very lucky that I was able to be put in this position where I can actually start saving. And now that I'm in this position, months ago, whenever I became sober and I started thinking about my finances and how I'll be saving money and where I'll put the money towards, I thought back and I was like, you know what? I didn't have this realization then. I knew before I went sober and before I started saving money at a much faster, rapid rate, I knew I wanted to pay back my roommate and my landlord, because I owed my roommate like $800. Not all in a row, but over the entire time of living with them, more towards the end, I wasn't able to pay my full rent every single month. I would usually be short like $100, $200. Sometimes, very rarely, I wouldn't be able to pay it at all. But eventually that all added up to $800. And then, of course, he moved out, and I don't blame him at all. And he moved out, and then I was by myself, and I was getting further behind on rent, just on my own, because before he moved out, he would pay the rent. He would make up the difference, which is why I owe him $800. And then after he moved out, I got behind about $1,000 with my landlord before I got evicted, which she evicted me for a number of reasons. I went through other roommates after my old roommate moved out, and the other roommates, some of them didn't even help pay at all. In fact, most of them didn't. And whenever they did help pay, it wasn't as much as they said they would help. It wasn't the 50-50, and I was still sitting there trying to pay it all on my own with all these substance problems, and sometimes just not enough hours. And that's my own fault, because I asked to reduce my hours so I could work on music. And all while my substance abuse was just getting worse. And then my roommates got a dog, their old dog, back, and I lied to my landlord. Basically, I didn't straight up lie, but I didn't communicate that the dog was coming. Actually, well, first I asked if we were allowed to have dogs at all, even though I knew on the lease it vaguely kind of said no. And then the landlord said like a definite no, and she's like, well, I hope you're not getting a dog. And then I think that's where I did lie, and because I knew that my roommate was about to have a dog, and I was completely freaking out. And also, the roommate that I had just wasn't the most responsible, and I knew that we weren't going to be able to keep the dog on the down low, and it was like the dog needed a place to stay, so I couldn't say no, being like someone who loves animals. But also, I knew that this was going to be another thing to add to the snowball effect of what eventually happened, which was the eviction notice. And so, eventually we were evicted, and we were all living in a hotel. There was 3 of us and a dog. And that was, it was not good. It was very cramped. And I'm very grateful that my parents, at this point, after a month or so, or was it 2 months, I don't know, a little while of living in a hotel, my parents saw how bad I was struggling, and they offered me to move back in. And since then, I've been getting much better, and I no longer drink at all. I even quit weed and nicotine and caffeine and even processed foods. So I've completely turned my life around and my behavioral patterns, and I'm saving money now. And now that I'm doing that, I am going to pay back my landlord, of course, so it's better for me, or easier for me, to get a place whenever I do move out of my parents' house. Although I'm thinking about just saving up completely for property and skipping the apartment and just having my own piece of land and then building my own house or something like that. That seems smarter. It seems smarter to go about it that way rather than pay someone, especially, like, I just don't want to be put in that position again where I'm struggling and where I have to pay rent. I'd rather just already have my own land, my own property, and not have to worry about it. But I'm not sure if it's that simple. I've heard other people say that, getting a home now is so expensive you might as well just rent. But I don't know. I'm thinking I should get my own home. And also, I'm going to pay back my old roommate, even though I know he's not expecting it at all. Although I already texted him like a year ago, like saying, hey, keep my number because I do plan on paying you back. Even though it's already been like 2 or 3 years, and it seems like empty words, but this is what I'm thinking. As soon as I have saved up enough, and then I have a car, and then I buy a car, I'm gonna save up for 1 or 2 months, and that'll be enough. Well, it might take more, like 3 or 4 months, but I'll have enough to pay back my roommate, my old roommate, my ex-roommate, and my old landlord. And then after I pay them back, my conscience will feel lighter. Like, I won't feel as bad of a person, and I'll feel like I've redeemed myself a little bit in my past actions. And yeah, I also, like, I am a man of my word, and I really have a strong desire to do what I said I would do. And that's pay him back. And I always told him I would pay him back. So it's just the right thing to do. So I'm gonna pay back my roommate, my ex-roommate eventually. Hopefully I can still get in contact with him, because it's been another year since I texted him, and I think I lost his number since then because I got a new phone. This whole complication happened with my older phone, but I'm mutual friends with other people on Facebook and stuff, so I'm sure I'll be able to find his number again. So it's not that big of a deal. And if I don't find his number, then I'm just gonna try my very best to find him and find his number, and I'll keep that $800 aside until I find him. But that's not gonna happen for another like 6 months or so. But still, it's coming up, and I'm excited to actually be able to pay him off and just let it be in the past. And then pay off my landlord, who I'll have to find her phone number again too, and hopefully they're still in the same spot, because I don't remember the name. Oh wait, I remember the name. I'll probably be able to find her with a quick Google search or something. At the very least, I'm sure she hasn't moved, and I can just go back to where they were, drive back to Columbia, Missouri with $1,000 in cash in hand, and just knock on the door and be like, hey, here you go. Which I know isn't the smartest way to do it, because you want proof that you actually paid it back. But she's always been, like, I don't know, a good landlord, or a respectable person. I just pushed her to the limit, really. She tried to help me out a lot. She really did. And I just really, I pushed her to the limit. So I trust that paying her $1,000 in cash will work. But I might just show up and just knock on her door and be like, hey, I'd like to pay you back, and then I'll pay with a debit card or something through Venmo or something. I don't know. Or a check. I'll just write a check. That might be better. Or I'll just record the moment of, all right, here's the $1,000. Me handing you $1,000. I'll just have it recorded on my phone, and then just save that. I'll be smart about it, just in case, because you never know. Like, nothing against her personally. It's just smarter just to be prepared, and just to make sure I have proof that I paid it. Because you never know. Maybe people hold resentment. Maybe she's like, oh, this guy, oh, he just gave me the money, but let me just say that he didn't. Or maybe, people change sometimes for the worse. But I don't know. I'm not going to expect that she's going to change for the worse. I'm just going to prepare and show up. I'll pay her off. I'll record it. I'll do what I got to do. So yeah, leave a comment down below. Have you ever gotten behind on rent, had your roommate pay rent for you? Or have you been the roommate paying for your other roommate? Are you a landlord who has tenants that are behind? Leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching. For the animals! Woo!